Alright, so my topic is the future of evolution in humans. What really first made me interested in this was freshman year we all studied evolution. And I understood most of the concepts, but I couldn't wrap my head around was how they apply to humans. Or more specifically, I couldn't answer the question, are we still evolving? And so, when I looked into this research last year, I had an opportunity to do one of my classes. I identified three main things, which kind of support the theory that we wouldn't be evolving. And the first one is that our definition of success has changed. And more specifically, people who are unsuccessful in today's society, such as poor people, or unhappy people, or not physically fit people, still have the opportunity to reproduce. And so they still pass on those unsuccessful genes, which is kind of a problem with Darwin's concepts, which say that only the successful should move on. The second thing is that in today's society, we have such advanced technology and machinery that the environment is forced to adapt to us, rather than we are forced to adapt to it. Now, under Darwin's ideas, like a massive change in the environment which would cause every species to evolve, rather than a massive change in our society causing the environment to evolve, which is how it works now. And thirdly, as a society, we move and intermix so much that most people who grow up somewhere, they grow up somewhere nowhere near where they end up dying. They move around throughout their life. And this means that we don't achieve the isolated populations needed to evolve. And so Darwin's theories are pretty much out of the question in today's society, which would make me think that we're not evolving. But there's a major contradiction because evidence shows that we are, and that brings me to the Framingham Heart Study, which was a multi-generational study of over 10,000 people, which tested things like blood pressure and cholesterol. And it did that for weeks at a time, over years and years and years. And the scientists who conducted it could actually statistically prove that we are evolving. And things like genetically inherited diseases are going away. And so while logic says we're not evolving, the facts say we are. So my conclusion to this was that, well, yes, we are evolving, but it's no longer the Darwin sense. It's a new type of modern evolution, which only exists in the global scale. And in fact, it's just evolving away from death. And Darwin's ideas said that we want to evolve in order to reproduce more successfully. But in today's society, there's less competition to reproduce. So if you live long enough, chances are you have the opportunity to have kids. So we only need to live long enough. And this manifests itself in things like better immune systems and less genetically inherited diseases, which are all reducing on a global scale. So over the last 1,000 years, we've gone through a major change between Darwin's evolution and this modern evolution. But the real question that I want to find out is what's the next step? And so that comes in two forms. The first one is a combination between technology and biology, which is like robot humans, which sounds very intimidating at first, but there's two experiments that I want to highlight that show how close this future might actually be. The first one was in China. There was a scientist who managed to take a skin cell from a rat and revert that skin cell into a stem cell, which you could then use to recreate the rat, which is pretty impressive. And the second experiment is even more impressive. And that was an MIT professor who used certain proteins to map the thoughts of a mouse almost, and then record those thoughts in binary code. And the ideas behind this experiment are kind of confusing, but the idea is that in the future we might be able to download our memories. And then if you combine these two experiments, it's plausible we could download our memories and upload them to an exact replica of ourselves. And just think of how fast evolution could occur if we were constantly replicating ourselves and downloading our memories. It would be at a hyper speed, and our species could change incredibly quickly. This might be a little while down the road, but there's another thing that's actually happening right now, and that is genetic manipulation, or designer babies. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's the concept behind being able to take our DNA and alter it so we can make our kids look like whoever we want. And to show how fast that's changing, let's look at the Human Genome Project, which started in 1990. It took 13 years and $2.7 billion to complete it. And today we can do the same thing in 1 week with $20,000. So every day we're learning more and more about the human genome and more about our makeup as people. And with that information comes new technology. And one thing I want to highlight is CRISPR, which is a new series of proteins which are able to cut our DNA and then turn off and turn on certain genes, which means that genetic manipulation and designer babies are real today. Any person with the money and the desire can decide what their child wants to look like. Hair color, skin color, intelligence, athleticism can all be decided. Just imagine what the consequences could be if rich people's society started making a super breed of humans. And it's very scary because the US has no laws governing this, unlike many other countries. So anybody at any time can make a super child that grows up. Like it's completely possible. So I want to wrap up with a quote that I came across in my work, and it says, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are years when decades happen. I think this really wraps up what I'm saying, because I believe that we're on the brink of scientific breakthrough, which could cause our society to evolve more in the next decade than it has in the last 10,000 years. And society 20 years from now could look nothing like ancient Neanderthals or anything like that. We could be completely different. I think it's a major thing to think about in the future.